Hi there, this is Sandra with the Mortgage Center. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. Um, it's a beautiful day here at my office, and it's a beautiful day in Guelph, Ontario. And one of the things I wanted to talk with you about tonight is we have had many calls from our clients and from the general public about sort of what the process is when you're going through a separation or a divorce and you're looking at buying a house. Now, we have all been in really close quarters with each other, and a relationship that may have not been working before the pandemic. Obviously COVID may have exacerbated it. So we have helped several clients in this situation, and I'd like to share with you some insider tips on buying a house when you're going through a separation or divorce. I think the first thing, which is kind of interesting, is there are currently many financial institutions that are accepting a separation, or if it's mutually agreeable, a separation agreement that is not necessarily written by a lawyer, but is notarized by a lawyer, or at least has a witness. And this is true if there is not a lot of disagreement in the separation or divorce. And when I think disagreement, I mean if there are no children, if you're just going to split the asset of the matrimonial home. We always recommend talking to a lawyer. I know a little while back I had a separation lawyer who was a guest of mine on these lives, and obviously she would recommend a lawyer, so would we. And we have a great group of lawyers that we do business with on a regular basis that we can refer you to. However, there are financial institutions now, if the separation or divorce is sort of amicable, you guys have decided to part ways, that we just need a simple separation agreement that's been witnessed, and sometimes it needs to be notarized by a lawyer. So that's sort of the first step. I often get calls from people who said, I just talked to my spouse, we're going to be splitting, what can we do? And we can certainly start the process, so we can decide whether or not you can keep the matrimonial home. So that's the second point, is who's going to keep the matrimonial home if you're not going to sell it. So first step, and tonight's live is the first one, is what to do when you're going through a separation or divorce. First step is craft a simple separation agreement. The second step is decide who is going to take the matrimonial home, or if you're actually going to sell the matrimonial home. And I know I do get a lot of calls before the separation agreement is actually drafted, just because people are curious about whether or not they can actually keep the matrimonial home and do an equity buyout for the spouse, or what it would look like if they sold the home, how much equity you would have. So again, separation agreement is important, but we often talk to clients even before they've drafted a separation agreement, just to kind of get a sense of what their budget is, what they can afford, can they do a spousal buyout, is the house going to have to be sold, right? So that's the second step when you're going through a separation agreement, is just to kind of figure out who's going to keep the home and or if you're going to sell the home. The other thing I wanted to mention to you, and this is so critical, is determining the value of the matrimonial home, or some of you may have multiple assets. I do find that sometimes people chintz out on this step, and they just get a real estate agent to do a valuation on the property. But and that's a good place to start, but we always recommend actually getting an appraisal on the property, a third-party appraisal. The cost is about $500, and what that is because it's done by a third party, it's actually viewed as a more unbiased valuation on the property, because if you get a real estate agent to value the property, they technically have a vested interest in that property. So we always recommend getting an appraisal, and our go-to appraisal management company is Value Connect. they actually have a special process set up for people who are going through a separation or a divorce, and you can check them out at valueconnect.ca. You can order the appraisal directly from them, or if you've already had a conversation at our office, we're happy to go ahead on the appraisal. And usually the cost is about $500. So don't chintz out on that by going through like a free through a free valuation by a real estate agent. The real estate agent is always a good place to start, but again, remember, they have a vested interest in selling the property. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is, so let's just say one of you have decided, let's just say you're the one who's going to stay at the house. So how do we do an equity takeout and how do you buy out the other spouse? The math is pretty straightforward. Most of the time I find that people are just going to separate the equity that's in the property. And then sometimes I find if one of the spouses originally put an extra sort of down payment on the property, so let's just say if one person put $10,000 and the other person put $20,000 for the initial down payment, they usually get that money back plus the equity in the home. So what we would actually do is just a refinance on the mortgage. So if you needed to buy out your ex and you needed to provide $100,000, we would just increase the current mortgage, just in real simple terms, by $100,000. And then we would work out a budget for you to make sure that you could afford those new payments. So if you have decided to sell your home, so if both of you thought, like, I've had a client just recently said, you know what, my spouse and I have lived in this house for like 20 years. I just want to start fresh. Then obviously they were going to sell the house. And the one sort of super important thing about that is, let's just say to get a firm offer. So the most important thing, or if you're going to be selling your house, is obviously get it on the market and then look at getting a firm offer. So that's an offer without any conditions. And once you get that firm offer, it sort of sets the clock ticking, because you know that you're going to be selling this house on a particular day. Now, what happens if you want to buy before you sell? So let's just say your sale date is July the 1st, but you would like to buy a property on I don't know, June the 15th, like 2 weeks before. You can actually get bridge financing in this situation. But if you and your ex are on the matrimonial home, remember, bridge financing is the loan for the down payment, because you are selling at a later date but want to purchase first. If your ex is on the matrimonial home, they're actually going to have to sign off on the bridge loan. So that doesn't usually complicate things unless you know that, because we let you know that up front. So it is possible to purchase first and then have your house sell at a later date if you actually have a firm offer on your sale. So tonight we're talking a little bit about setting up financing if you're going through like a separation or divorce, and like what to do with the matrimonial home and the mortgage. And here are some insider tips. So let's just start from the top. First thing is put together a simple separation agreement. Work out who's going to take the children, how you're going to split custody if you have children. If you don't have children, I think it's a little bit easier. And then many financial institutions are not requiring separation agreements that are not complicated to be written by a lawyer. They just need to be witnessed and usually notarized by a lawyer. So that would be step one. The second step would be figuring out what the actual value of your property is. So sometimes people chintz out and they get a real estate agent to do a free valuation. Remember, a realtor has a vested interest in the property. That's the way financial institutions look at real estate agents. We always recommend getting a third-party appraisal on the property. We work with a company called Valuation, and they're great. The cost is about $500. The next step is whoever is deciding to stay in the house, again, I'm just kind of repeating this for your benefit. The third step is whoever is going to stay in the house, we can help you with the equity buyout. And then whoever's going to be moving on, make sure you have that money in your bank account before you go looking for another house. And the reason for that is if you don't have that money in your bank account, your ex could hold you ransom for that. Sometimes does happen, especially if there's a disagreement. And then the last thing is that if you both decide to sell your house, your matrimonial home, and this sometimes does happen, um, you can actually buy before you sell your matrimonial home if you have a firm offer on your sale. So the one thing to remember about that is that you want to make sure that if your spouse is on the matrimonial home and you're selling it, they are going to have to sign off on any bridge financing. So that's a little bit about financing 101 when you're going through a separation or divorce. We are happy to help you. We've helped many spouses go through this. And what's really cool about working with us is we can work with both members of the separation in a confidential and separate way. And we've done that successfully hundreds of times, unfortunately. Or if you prefer, your spouse can go to another financial institution, and we can certainly recommend that. So have a great day. You can always reach me at Skip the Bank. You can go to my website at skipthebank.ca, and you can register and set up an appointment with me from there. I've got a schedule appointment button on my website, or you could just message me through Facebook, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks again. This is Sandra Lastovic with the Mortgage Center. I'm the principal broker. Love to connect with you. Just you can go to our website at skipthebank.ca, or just message me through Facebook.